Hi everyone, my name is Isabella Susilawati. I'm an excellent Power BI enthusiast with decades of business experience. Today, I'd like to show you how to build an effective Power BI report that allows ease of comparison across two different periods. Let's look at a simple line chart together showing sales by month across 2023 and 2022. A frequently asked question is, why are we seeing changes in sales? Why is it low in June and then growing significantly in July? And then why dip down to a new low in November? Let's look at the next visual, which attempt to provide sales breakdown by city and by product. However, by using this chart, it is still not easy to quantify the difference across two different periods. What we want is something clearer and more user-friendly so we can easily compare sales across two different periods. We want input boxes. We want sales waterfall and table showing variance analysis by city and by product. Perhaps a Power BI report that looks like this. In this video, I will show you how to recreate the report from scratch, step by step. There are 6 steps in total. Step 1 is to review our existing data model. And then in step 2, we will expand the data model by creating new dates table. Step 3 is to join the newly created date table. There are 2 methods that you can use. In this video, I will focus on explaining the first method using active relationship. In the next video, I will explore how to use the second method, the inactive relationship. And step 4 is to create new measures. Step 5 is to create variance analysis tables and apply conditional formatting. And the last step is to create the waterfall chart using simple waterfall visuals. Today, I want to show you a very interesting Power BI report. We have sales trend chart over here that shows 2023 in the black line and 2022, the year before that, in the dotted gray line. As you can see, sales is fluctuating. And on the right, you get to see sales by month and year, as well as by city. So what can you see from this chart? You can see that the bulk of the sales are coming from Melbourne, and it fluctuates over time. Sometimes you have low sales, sometimes you have more sales. And then you've got Brisbane, Perth, as well as Sydney, as outlined in the legend over there. You also get to see sales by product. And what can you see over here? There are 3 different products sold: eraser, pen and pencil, and the bulk of the products sold are pen. We also sold a little bit of pencil and a little bit of eraser. Now, this report is interactive so that you can click Sydney and then you can see in Sydney what's the breakdown by product. You can see Perth and you can see Perth sales by product on the right over here. So quite an interesting design. And today I want to show you how to create this report so that you have the ability to select any period that you want to compare. For example, I'm going to select May 2022, which is that. Yeah, and 147 at that time. And I want to compare May to December, for example, December 2023. And you can just scroll down and change November to December. Look at that. So 147, that was 2022, became 90,000, as you can see over here. And why are we seeing a drop? We get to see that by city, and we also get to see that by product. And we get to visualize that in this waterfall over here. Isn't this awesome? So how to recreate the report? The secret lies in the data model. There are 2 methods that we can adopt using active relationship as well as using inactive relationship. I will show you one by one in the subsequent part of this video. Method number 1 involves having one fact table connected to 2 date tables using active relationship. Method number 2 involves using inactive relationship to connect the 2 date tables. We have sales and the first date table over here connected using a simple one-to-many relationship. And then we have a second date table connected to the first date table using inactive relationship. In Power BI, you can see that inactive relationship are represented with the dotted line as opposed to the fixed solid line like this. Let's get started with method 1, using active relationships to connect the 2 date tables. This is our starting point. We're looking at the data model. We have one sales fact table and one date table, and we need to copy this date table to create a second date table. How do we do that? Click New Table, and then simply name the table date 2 and equal all non-blank row. Yep, that's the DAX to copy a table. And then click date, which is the name of the original date table. So now a new box is created over here, which you can click and drag. And then just link the date to date over there, and voila, ready to use. Next, let's create new measures. Click New Measure button, and then let's write up our DAX over there. The first measure that we need to create is sales for period 1. Type in sales P1 equal calculate, open bracket, sum of sales value, and then with a filter criteria where we have written all date 2. What does that mean? It means that we only want sales to be filtered by our first date table, and we want to ignore all the filtering that happened in the second date table, which is why we write all date 2. And then just hit commit. Now, once you have done that, just check our data, and you can see sales P1 has been created and it sits over there. We want to move that, click and drag that to measures. Now we have moved that in a clean place. Next, let's create a new measure. Click New Measure button, and we're going to create second measure called Sales P2. And the DAX is similar to what we wrote earlier, calculate open bracket, sum sales value, but with a filter criteria that says all date. What does it mean? It means that we only want sales to be filtered using date from the second table. And we're going to ignore all the filtering that happens in the first date table. And then click commit. Once you have done that, now you can see that we have two measures, sales P1 from earlier and sales P2, as well as the original, which is sales. This was already there from before. There is no filtering criteria. It's just a simple sales value being summed up. All right, now let's then check everything that we have just created earlier. First, let's go to table view, and in table view, let's just peruse the date 2. This is what we have created earlier, and date 1, which is this was the original table. Notice something, date 2 formatting is a little bit different from date 1. The date in date 1 table, the first date table, is neater, whereas in date 2, it has time. So let's change the format. How do we do that? Click the field, and then just change that format so that it's only date format without time. Okay, so first, just change that into date. And then after that, let's change that into something like that, month, year. And then same with this, change that into date, so that it's just neater, okay? So we are now happy with the date tables. Now let's go to the report view and let's sense check the measures. All right, we are now in the report view. Let's first create a slicer. I'm going to put month and year from the first date table over here, and I'm going to convert that into drop-down box. So go to slicer setting, and then the style, select drop-down. Now we can select relevant month and year. Okay, now that's our first slicer. Let's put some headings. So go to visuals, slicer header, turn on, and then we're going to rename that month, year, period 1. Okay, and then let's copy that, Control C, Control V, and let's make this period 2, month and year. The heading sorted, we also need to change the values. So that month year is from the first date table. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to get the month and year from the second date table. Click and drag that there. So now we have period 1 filter and period 2 filter or slicer over here. Now let's create our table and let's sense check the measures that we have previously created. I'm going to put sales P1, sales P2, as well as sales. Yeah. Now remember, sales is just the sum of sales value with no special calculate to override the filter context, whereas with sales P1, we are using calculate measures and we are overriding the filter context from date 2 by saying all. And for P2, we override the DAX context from the first date table. Okay, so now we have our 3 sales measure. Let's just format it nicely so that we can have the dollar figure. So I'm going to click sales and adding the dollar figure there so that it's neater. Yeah, and then doing the same for sales P1. Now notice that that's now changed, much neater, easier to see. And then that's for sales P2. Next, let's send check by selecting values in this slicer. I'm going to select January 2022. And notice something, when I do that, my charts get filtered and the value of sales and sales P1 is now filtered. It is now only showing 113, whereas sales P2 is still 3 million. Now I'm going to clear that and watch that everything now becomes 3 million because period 1 will only filter sales P1. So let me do that one more time. As you can see, that table is now filtered. Now, what if I don't want my charts to be filtered when I select January? I still want to see the trend charts. How do we do that? Very simple, just click Format, Edit Interaction, and then set that not to filtering, but to none. Yeah, and do the same thing for that and that. Yep. So now, no matter what month that I select in here, for example, that, yeah, it will only change the tables. It won't change the charts over here. It will always display all months, all year, at least for period 1. Now, let's sense check period 2 filtering. So I'm going to select January 2022 now. Now, notice something. When I do that, that disappeared. Yeah. Why? Because I haven't cleared the interaction. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to remove the interaction. Just drag it down. Yeah. So now, as you can see, I have period 2, January 2022. Just hover there, we can see 113,000 in there. And then period 1 is April 2022. So April and 2022, just check that in here. It is 118 and you can see 118. But for sales, it is showing blank. Why is that? Well, remember the sales table is being filtered by both date and date 2. And the sales measures over here is simply the sum of the sales value. There is no context override being defined in the calculate, which means if we are filtering April 2022 and January 2022, nothing would satisfy this criteria. The moment you filter April 2022 and January 2022, it gives you blank. So don't worry about that because we are not going to use the sales data. We will only use sales P1 and sales P2. We're going to ignore the sales measure in our waterfall charts and table that we're going to build later. Okay, next, let's create our tables. Let's click new tables over there, and then let's bring sales P1, sales P2, and then let's also bring our city. Okay, nice. But we also want one more column, which is the variance. So let's create new measures. And let's say variance of 2 versus 1 is equal to sales P2 minus sales P1. And I'm going to drag that over here. And as you can see, that's nicely calculated. Yeah. Now, the format is not nice. Let's tidy up. Let's hit $. And voila, much neater. But I want to see negative in red fonts rather than black fonts. How do we do that? Just right click in here, hit conditional formatting, font color, and then just change that. We can have red at a middle color and make that red as well and make that black. And let's enter the value. Change custom. We say if it's less than 0.1 and then make that custom, enter 0, and then the highest value, make that custom and enter 1. Actually make it 0.01. I think we're done. Oh, and we want this to be applied to values and total. This should be based on our variance measure. All right, and then let's click and drag to the measures so that it's neater. Now it refuses to do that. There is another way that you can move these two measures. Just click variance to 1 and then change that home table into measures. Now all the measures are grouped neatly in that measure table. Let's get rid of that. We have our tables which outline sales in period 1 and 2 by city. And we want to create one more, which is by products. Let's do that. Now let's then check our table. Let's change the period into period 2 is October. Let's scroll down and find October. And then period 1, let's make it January 2022. Okay, so we have January sales 113 and then October 134. Very nice. Okay, we're missing something. We don't have table headings. How do we add that? Just click the table, go to the right, and then go to general. And then title is currently switched off, turn it on, and then just type in sales by city, period 1 versus P2, for example. Yep. And you can see that show up over there. And then for the second table, do the same thing. Just go general, on, title. And you can say sales by product. P1 versus P2. Next, we're going to create waterfall charts. We can't use the standard waterfall charts that is usually available over here. We need to use a visualization called Simple Waterfall. If you don't see that in your icon panel over here, click the 3 button, get more visuals, and then after that, type in Simple Waterfall. There is one thing that I want to do. I want to rename our Variance 21 into something which is more informative. I'm going to call it Sales Variance between period 2 and period 1, like that, okay? Now, once I've done that, we'll notice that also being displayed as Sales Variance 21. Next, we're going to create additional measures for each sales variance corresponding to each city, as well as corresponding to each product. So how do we do that? Just click New Measures, and then in here, type in Sales Variance 21 Brisbane is calculate sales VAR to 1, keep filter sales city equal to Brisbane. So let me just show you what it will show if you hit commit. Then what it's showing is this. So just click and drag that down here and you will see it will display 18,000 when the city is Brisbane. But when the city is Sydney, it will display nothing. Yeah, so that is the meaning of keep filter. If you don't have keep filter and you only just do this, then what you get is 18,000 everywhere. And we don't want that. We only want 18,000 to be shown when city is equal to Brisbane, which is why we use keep filters. Like that, okay? So that's the first one for Brisbane. We need to create more. We need to create one for Melbourne as well. So click New Measures and one for Melbourne. And then we also want to create one for Sydney. And then we want to create one for Perth. So let's change that to Perth. And let's make that a small e. Okay. And then after that, we need more. We need one for pen. And then we need one for pencil. And then we need one for eraser. Okay. So if we look to the right, those are our newly created measures. And I'm going to move them all into the measure tables. So I'm going to just change that into measures. Okay, Now it's nice and neat. Next, let me show you how to make the waterfall. Click the simple waterfall and then just drag cells P1 into values and then cells P2 also. That's the start and the beginning. And then in the middle, let's put in Brisbane and then Melbourne, Perth, Sydney, and then bring P2 to the end. That's the start and the end. And then what you can do is define the pillar. So the start and the end are the pillars, and then the things in the middle are not the pillars. You can change the bar color. Let's say I want the pillars to be gray. Yeah. And then that title is a bit long. So let's change the title and then just call it Sales Movement, oops, not visible, by city. Yeah. And then you can make that in the middle. And if I don't want to see that, y-axis, go to visuals, and then scroll down. You can turn it off, but that looks ugly. So just turn it on, scroll down, and then change the font color to white. That's another way so that it's still neat. Now, that looks lengthy. You can change the title by varying this. Just double click P1 and then double click. Let's call it Melbourne. Double click, call it Perth. So we are shortening the name. Sydney, double click, Brisbane, and double click P2. Okay, and if you want to reorder, just click and drag, for example, like that. So much neater, okay? And then do the same thing by city. So Control C, Control V. We're just going to recycle this, not by city, so get rid of all of that and replace that with the products, pen, pencil, and eraser. Okay, and then click and drag properly, and then rename. And then change the title, general, title, sales movement by products. And then let's tidy up our table. We don't need that last one. There you go. Waterfall and tables, variance analysis across 2 periods are now completed. Let's check that. Oh, look at that. Everything interacts and change. And then let's just check one more thing. If we select Melbourne, what do we see? Well, we don't really see anything. Let's check pen. Okay, nice interaction. Now, if you want that to filter, just change the interaction to filter like that. Yeah, and then similarly, click over here. So if you want it to filter, just change the interaction to filtering. Yeah. Hold on, just make that a bit smaller first. Okay, so that's nice. All done. I really hope that you find this video useful, and next week I will show you an alternative method of comparing data across 2 periods using inactive relationship. I will also show you how you can design a Power BI report that compare not just 2 periods, but 3 different periods. See you next time!